Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to do something a little different and explore the hidden business mechanics behind a massive e-tailer by looking directly at their foundational blueprint. We are opening up Chewy's Form 10-K. Now, if you aren't familiar, a 10-K is essentially the ultimate, unfiltered annual report filed with the SEC. It gives us an incredibly transparent, backstage pass to a company's actual operations, their long-term strategies, and yes, their deepest vulnerabilities. So we're going to decode this massive document to figure out exactly how Chewy grew to become the absolute largest pure-play pet e-tailer in the United States.
To really understand why this industry is such an incredibly lucrative target, you have to wrap your head around the sheer scale of the playing field. $95 billion. That was the staggering size of the overall U.S. pet market in 2019 alone. I mean, this isn't just some niche hobbyist market, right? This is a massive multi-billion-dollar economy. Grabbing even a tiny fraction of a percent of this market represents unbelievable revenue potential.
So, we're going to unpack this complex filing in 4 straightforward stages. First, the booming pet economy. Second, the Chewy playbook. Third, strategies for future growth. And fourth, risks and roadblocks.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the booming pet economy.
Before we can even begin to understand Chewy as a company, we have to understand the uniquely resilient industry they operate in. And the massive growth of this industry, it's driven by a really fascinating psychological shift known as pet humanization. The data actually shows that a staggering 90% of dog owners and 86% of cat owners now view their pets as literal family members. This is the absolutely crucial psychological driver behind the numbers. When consumers see a pet as a family member, they aren't just buying basic sustenance anymore. They're upgrading. They're totally willing to pay a premium for healthier, higher quality food, treats, and supplies just to ensure the absolute best well-being for their loved ones.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the incredible counter-cyclical resilience of the pet industry. Just look at what happened during the 2008 to 2010 economic recession. General consumer spending shrank. People cut back on entertainment by 7%. They even cut back on their own personal food spending by 3.8%. But get this, overall pet spending in the US actually increased by 12%. Because spending on pets is viewed as a fundamental, non-negotiable necessity, this market is heavily shielded against economic downturns compared to practically any other retail sector.
Now, combine that recession-proof spending with the massive secular shift of internet shopping, and you've got a perfect storm for an e-commerce giant. Back in 2015, only 7% of U.S. pet product sales were online. But by 2019, that number had surged to 22%. That is a compounded annual growth rate of over 40% for online pet retail alone. For anyone watching retail trends, the takeaway is crystal clear. Internet shopping is aggressively eating up market share from traditional brick-and-mortar pet stores, and Chewy positioned themselves perfectly to ride this massive wave.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Chewy playbook. So how exactly do they capture this booming online market and keep those highly invested pet parents coming back for more? Well, it all comes down to a really extreme, high-touch mandate. When you order pet food online, you don't typically expect world-class hospitality, right? But Chewy made customer service the literal core of their brand. Their 10K actually points out that virtually all customer calls are answered in less than 6 seconds. 6 seconds! And their representatives aren't just outsourced call center workers reading from a script. They're trained pet lovers, fully empowered to provide highly specialized, authentic advice. They deliberately make contacting them completely frictionless.
But what's truly fascinating is how Chewy translates this corporate philosophy into extreme empathy. They don't just want to solve your shipping problem, they actively try to create what they call wow moments. We are talking about surprising customers out of the blue with hand-painted portraits of their pets, or deeply personal gestures like sending flowers to a family who has recently lost a dog or cat. By engaging on this highly personal, deeply emotional level, they generate an intense brand loyalty that is incredibly difficult for competitors to just copy.
But here's the thing, extreme empathy doesn't work if the operational mechanics aren't there to back it up. This deep customer connection is supported by some serious logistical scale. Chewy offers a vast assortment of over 2,000 curated brands, and they maintain a highly efficient distribution network. By strategically placing these massive fulfillment centers across the country, they can ship to approximately 80% of the U.S. population overnight and almost 100% within 2 days. This incredible speed, combined with the predictable recurring revenue of their super popular Autoship subscription program, allows them to optimize their assets and heavily drive down their fixed costs per unit.
Let's move to Section 3, strategies for future growth.
Now that we've seen their foundation, how does a company with this much scale continue to grow? Their 10K outlines a massive self-feeding expansion loop. It all starts by extracting more share of wallet from existing customers, basically getting you to buy a wider variety of products as your trust in them deepens. Then they funnel that free cash flow directly into aggressive marketing to acquire brand new customers. At the exact same time, they're leveraging their growing technological scale to lower transaction costs and improve margins, all while aggressively pushing their own highly profitable private brands like Frisco and American Journey. And all of this lays the groundwork for looking way beyond standard retail, exploring much broader platform opportunities, including some major moves into pet healthcare.
And actually, that expansion into healthcare is particularly strategic. In July 2018, they launched Chewy Pharmacy. This moves them way beyond just selling kibble and squeaky toys, allowing them to provide real prescription medications and special veterinary diets. The goal here is pretty simple. They want to become a total one-stop shop. Because the more a customer relies on Chewy for the essential medical well-being of their pet, the deeper they are locked into the entire ecosystem.
All right, Section 4, Risks and Roadblocks.
Because no corporate filing is complete without diving into the risk factors, it's time for a pragmatic reality check. We need to look at what keeps Chewy's executives up at night. What existential threats stand in the way of their path to sustained profitability? What are the major vulnerabilities in this seemingly flawless machine?
Well, the filing exposes three looming threats. First, immediate supply chain and fulfillment disruptions, like those chaotic logistical nightmares we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic that threatened facility shutdowns. Second, fierce competition. They're up against massive e-tailers and mass merchandisers with significantly greater financial resources. Those giants might just engage in aggressive, predatory pricing to steal market share. Third, they have a really heavy reliance on their suppliers. Most of the premium pet foods Chewy sells aren't found in your typical supermarket. If those premium manufacturers suddenly decide to partner with massive grocery chains instead, Chewy loses a huge competitive advantage.
And this brings us to a really fascinating financial reality highlighted in the report. Despite their massive scale, incredibly high revenue growth, and an almost cult-like devoted customer base, Chewy has a history of operating losses. The document specifically states they actually expect these operating losses to continue in the near term. It's an aggressive, highly intentional strategy. They are completely prioritizing growth over immediate profit, pouring their cash flow straight back into marketing to acquire new customers, and building out even more massive fulfillment centers to maintain their total logistics edge.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question as we wrap up this explainer. We've seen exactly how they have weaponized customer service and logistical scale to capture a booming market. But can Chewy's highly emotional, high-touch model truly withstand the intense gravity of massive, heavily capitalized e-commerce competitors and unpredictable global supply chain disruptions? It's an open question of whether extreme empathy is the ultimate shield in the fierce, cutthroat reality of modern retail. Thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning the blueprints behind the businesses you use every single day.